Welcome back to Your 1230, the only podcast where our guests tell their story with the help of 12 questions in just 30 minutes. I'm your host, Mike Salitro, and tonight we are very excited to be speaking with Kathleen Donnelly Israel. Kathleen has lived her entire life in San Diego, California. She raised 5 children with her husband of 48 years, Ron Israel. They were a team couple for Worldwide Marriage Encounter. She graduated with a bachelor's degree in art from San Diego State University and studied Expressive Arts Therapy at the European Graduate School in Switzerland. She cared for her husband for the 17 years that he had Parkinson's disease until he died in 2018. During this time, she studied spiritual healing from many enlightened thought leaders and teachers. She wrote her book about her travels on the Camino Santiago in Spain and about sharing her wisdom with those she met there. Kathleen, welcome. We are really excited to be speaking with you.
I'm so happy to be here.
Me too. Me too. I'm glad you could join us. So you've done some incredible things in your life, from helping others to writing a book to traveling the world. When you meet someone that doesn't know your backstory or very much about you, how do you introduce yourself? And what's the first question they generally ask you?
Well, I just tell them that I lived in San Diego all my life, just like you said, and I'm a Catholic. I just really like being a Catholic, and so I go on, like, the pilgrimage that I went on is a Catholic pilgrimage. Actually, only about 30% of the people go on it as a pilgrimage, but I did. That's what I did. And so I don't know, I just wanted to do something very special. When my husband died, all my dreams of what we would do in our old age went away. So I had to think of something else for me to do. So that's why I did the Camino.
Okay. And I'm very sorry to hear about your husband. I know that can't be easy to have those plans or have the aspirations that you look forward to and that not be realized. But you've turned to this book, Wisdom on the Camino, as a way to tell that story. Or how do you describe the book to others when they're looking for something to read or when they ask you why this book?
Well, when I got back from the Camino, I thought, okay, well, it's time to write my book. And so I sat down to write the book about my teachings that I studied for so many years, and I did a lot of personal healing. And I thought, wow, this would be great to share with other people. And then I got reluctant to be teachy, and I was like, what am I going to do? And so I remembered that I told people all those things on the Camino. So I wrote my book about walking the Camino and sharing my teachings with people along the way.
Very nice. And for those of us who are not familiar with Camino Santiago, what is bringing people there for their pilgrimage, and what did you see while you were there?
The Camino Santiago, years ago, like the apostle of Jesus, James, the apostle of Jesus, actually went to the Iberian Peninsula to tell people about Jesus. And he wasn't very successful. So he went back to Jerusalem and he got martyred. And then the story goes that some angels brought him back to Spain. I figure maybe it was people with the help of angels. I don't know. But anyway, they buried him in Spain. And around the 900s, 1200s, something like that, they were trying to get the Moors out of Spain. And St. James appeared and helped them win the battle and get the Moors out of Spain. And so everybody really liked St. James. And so they found his grave, and then people started making pilgrimages to his grave. And they built this giant cathedral around his grave. And so it's a big deal. And it was mostly Roman roads that people traveled on to go to Santiago. Santiago means St. James, actually. And so in the 1970s, they decided to resurrect the Camino again. And they found that most of the Camino was still available to walk on. They had built freeways over part of it. So when I walked, I went under freeways. There were underpasses under freeways. And I actually walked on the freeway a couple of times, which was not very fun. But anyway, yeah, so that's what and at the end of the Camino, you can get your Compostela, and it's a certificate that said that you walked the Camino Santiago. And so I walked from Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port in France, and I walked to Santiago, which is almost 500 miles. But you don't have to walk that far. You can just walk 100K and they'll still give you the Compostela.
So what inspired you to do the full 500 miles then?
Well, my husband died and I didn't have anybody needing me to be here. And actually, in 2013, my girlfriend Judy walked the Camino. And she didn't walk the whole thing. But anyway, she shared it on Facebook and I was watching it. And I thought, that's what I'm going to do when Ron's done with his illness. I'm going to go to do the Camino. And I don't know, I'm pretty thrifty. And if I'm going to spend all that money to go across the pond, I'm going to stay there a while. And so I wanted to do the big deal. So I wanted to walk the Camino.
Very nice. Very nice. Part of the subtitle for your book mentions a spiritual journey, forgiveness, and inspiration. What about the journey for you? What did you find most inspirational? Was it the people you were with? Was it what you saw? Was it the distance? And where does the forgiveness piece come in?
Well, I had kind of a rough childhood. And so I had a lot of forgiving to do, which was very difficult. And I learned Ho'oponopono. Have you heard of that?
I haven't.
Okay, well, it's a Hawaiian healing technique and for the family, actually. But you don't have to do it with somebody. You can do it all by yourself, and it still works. And it loosens the binds we have with people that have hurt us or something like that. And so it starts out, I love you, and it's I love God, God loves me, God loves the other person loves God. And if you can say it, I love the other person. But if you can't, you don't have to say it. I love you, I'm sorry. And it's not I'm sorry I did anything, but I'm sorry the situation exists. Please forgive me for what's going on in me that caused me to attract this. So there's something inside of me caused me to attract this, or maybe I have a button that somebody pushed, but it's in me. So please forgive me for what's going on in me that caused me to attract this. And then it's thank you for showing me this so I could heal. Because if I didn't see this pain inside of me, I wouldn't know where I need to heal. And then the big I love you, I love God, God loves me, God loves the other person loves God. Anyway, so through learning, this is one of the things I learned when I was studying. And it made me realize that the people who I need to forgive, they hurt me deeply, but I had a pain inside of me that they touched that was so horrible that I really hate them, So I don't really need to forgive them because I sort of attracted in the sadness or the whatever. So the forgiveness part is just kind of like a wash now for me. because I understand that they were just doing what they do, and I attracted it in, and now I hurt. And so I can forgive myself for having this pain inside of me, but I don't really need to forgive them anymore. So that's the little twist around for the forgiveness thing. And the other part is the inspiration. I just think that I was inspired by all the things that I learned from all those enlightened thought leaders and teachers. And so since I shared all those things, I thought people would be inspired by it too.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us. That is a different twist on forgiveness, and when you mention it that way, it makes sense that if you can reposition the thinking where you're uh, making it in a way that you're eliminating the pain for yourself by forgiving what you have brought on, that I think that can be helpful in some situations. What
Mhm.
a lot of the reviews and feedback on Amazon is very positive for the book. What have people told you directly who've read it? What are you hearing most?
Well, I love the one that there was one that somebody said, um, gee, I bought your book and I thought, well, I'll read a chapter a night. And she read 1/3 of the book the first night, and the second night she read the rest of the book. So it was just like it's compelling because my adventures, I really got into trouble and I I had there's difficulties and then you just get out of them, and I, it's a compelling story. It's a page turner.
Could you share one of the stories of that you would consider a compelling story, or one of the times you were in trouble and how you got out?
Well, I was at this monastery. I signed in, and usually they'll tell you you have to be out by 8, or you have to be out by 8:30, or whatever it is. And the guy did not say that. And so I hadn't slept in a couple of nights because there's so much snoring in the albergues. When you go there, you stay in these big rooms full of bunk beds, and there's snoring. And so this lady at the monastery told me, well, why don't you just sleep in and then you'll get some sleep. He didn't say we had to leave at a certain time, so you'll be all right. And so that's what I did. And the next morning I got up and I started making my breakfast. Um, and the guy came in and he was livid, and he was like yelling at us, all of us, in Spanish. And I just kind of looked at him like, okay, well, I don't know what you said. I mean, I kind of knew what he said, but I, anyway, I was playing dumb. And, and then, so so anyway, I made my breakfast. I ate my breakfast. I started making my lunch, and he comes in again, and his eyes were like so big, and he was, and then, I just smiled at him. And and then he found his English words and he said, "You are ruining my life. I need to get this kitchen clean, and I need, you're stealing my time that I could have with my family." And I said, "Well, I'll give you some more money." And he said, "You can't buy my time with my family." And so I'm like, okay, well, so I just got my stuff together, and I went and got my backpack, and I went to go into the restroom uh, because I'm an old lady. I can't just, I have to go to the restroom. And and so there he was standing by the restroom. He had the mop and the broom, and they were like an X across the door. And he looked at me and he pointed to the door and he said, "No, go." And so I walked out. I mean, I grabbed my pack, threw it on my shoulder, and carefully walked down the stairs because I didn't want to fall. And so there was a lady in the garden, and she said, well, just leave. And I said, well, I don't even know how to get out of here. It was an old monastery with, I mean, I didn't know which way was out. And so she showed me the way to go out. And I noticed a restroom. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I used the restroom. And when I came out of the restroom, that guy was standing there and he had this really sheepish, sad look on his face. And he held out, I had some medals that I had pinned on my collar, and he held them out in his hand like he was handing them to me. And so I took them, and I noticed one of the medals was missing. And I said, well, what about St. Jerome? And he goes, St. Jerome. And so he ran back to the garden, and he started looking through the grass for St. Jerome. And I was looking too. And then I just said, oh, well, maybe St. Jerome is for someone else. And so I left. But the thing is, he was so angry, but I don't know, maybe when he found my medals, he thought, oh my gosh, I just yelled at a holy woman or something. I don't know what he was thinking. But anyway, there you go.
There we go. That's quite a story. So thank you for sharing that. I'm sure the book is full of anecdotes like that. So I thank you, Kathleen. On a more serious note, you mentioned caring for your husband in your bio, and we've talked about that he has passed. Many people have difficulty, or I should say before difficulty, they've got family members, loved ones who are ill or in need of care. And sometimes it's an unexpected situation. And even if it is expected, it's not easy to spend the amount of time, the care, the dedication to do that. How were you able, you were married for almost 50 years. What was that like for almost 20 of them to be in that caretaker role? How did you, how did you kind of continue your role as sidekick, as wife, as caretaker? How did that kind of work out in a way that you still think about fondly, or you smile every time you bring up your husband, Ron?
Well, yeah, he was a pretty special person. And actually, he, I mean, he was an athlete in his life. And so when people heard that Ron got Parkinson's disease, they were like, oh no, not Ron, you know. But also, Ron, anyway, he liked being cared for. He did. And he loved being cared for by me. I was like his wealth. But we prayed a lot. I mean, okay, so here he was paralyzed, right? He couldn't talk, he couldn't walk, he could use his hands, he could like send me little notes, like he would text me and stuff. And he would write on my hand, what he wanted with his finger. And so we, things like that. But we prayed a lot too. When he first got ill, I really wanted to leave, not leave him, but I wanted him to heal. I wanted to try all the healing. There are healings out there for Parkinson's disease, whether they work or not, I do not know. But anyway, he didn't want to do anything like that. He embraced his disease. There I was. I wanted him to get better. And there he was. I'm going to have Parkinson's disease, and this is it, Kathleen. And so, I mean, he was okay for like from 2002 to 2010. He was okay. He could get around. They gave him these meds. I'm not a person that takes meds. And so he took the meds, and it was just like his show, and I got to be, like you say, the sidekick. And so I used to put him in his wheelchair. we still went out on dates. We went to the theater. I could like stick him in his wheelchair. I mean, put his suit on him, stick him in his wheelchair and take him to the Old Globe Theater for, Shakespeare and all kinds of stuff like that. And I could take him to the beach. He loved to eat. I could take him, I walked from from Mission Beach to Pacific Beach and back again, pushing the wheelchair. And we did stuff. And so, and then before he was paralyzed, he like set up the bedroom for himself so he could, have Parkinson's disease. He put his chair here and the TV there. And he was like dug in. He would sit there and watch cowboy movies and NCIS, and he was happy. And the doctor told me that I couldn't leave him at all when he was paralyzed because he had to be able to get out. So I got a construction person, and they put a door right by his chair and a deck out there so he could get out. I figure he could, could drag himself out if he needed to. So I could actually go to the grocery store and stuff because they, I volunteered at the Old Globe, so we got free tickets. So that's why we could do that. And so I had a way of, even when he was paralyzed, I got this little stick, and he had a death grip. Like his hand, if he grabbed onto something, there's no way you could get him off of that thing. So anyway, I let him hang on to the stick, and then I lifted the stick up till he was standing up, and then I could just kind of pull it, and he would walk. So that was kind of fun. And we just made ways to do things. The way I got him up out of his chair was I put his hands on my waist, and I kind of, kind of squatted down and put his hands on my waist. And then I stood up and he stood up with me. And then I could just I called it a pirouette, and put him in his wheelchair. And so, we had ways to do stuff.
Again, that could not have been easy to share. So thank you for doing that. It is, again, you can tell there is true love there as you describe what it's like to care for someone in that condition. So thank you for sharing that. On a lighter note, as we are wrapping up, what is next for you, Kathleen?
Well, okay, so I walked the Camino Santiago, the French way, in 2019, and then in 2021 I walked from Lisbon to Santiago. And my next one is I'm going to walk from the northern route. There's a northern route along the northern coast of Spain, and I just love the ocean, so I think that will be fun for me. But like I had in 2019, I had my 70th birthday on the Camino. So next year, I'm going to have my 75th birthday on the Camino. I'm going to walk the northern coast.
What can you tell us now that you're looking at your third trip to Camino? What can you tell us about the book?
Okay, so I have in my book, I have a gift for my readers, and it's right across from the table of contents, and it says, read this first, and then you can see my pictures. All my friends told me, oh, Kathleen, you have to put your pictures in the book. And I'm like, yeah, and then it'll be $50. So I made a website with each chapter's pictures in it. So you have to double opt in, and then you can, when you read the book, you can see the pictures of my trip.
Okay, so we'll be sure to post links to the book. We'll post to the websites for anybody who has the book and wants to follow along with the photos that you've included. Where else can our listeners connect with you, Kathleen, if they want to learn more or to to speak with you directly?
My website is wisdomonthecamino.com. And so on there, I have all my podcasts on a page, and I have, you can click the link and to buy the book on Amazon, or you can just go to Amazon and just put Wisdom on the Camino and it comes up.
Okay, so we will have that there. Kathleen, again, thank you for joining us, and I wish you nothing but the best.
Thanks, Mike.